All right, so today I want to talk about some of these big discounts that some of you freight brokers are giving to your shippers. And some of this boils down to just not knowing how to price lanes. Another part of it is you're trying to compete to get freight. And I understand that. I understand that the competition is tough, and sometimes you go out and you start pricing lanes just so that you can get the lane, right? And also you're trying to build those relationships with your shippers, trying to get more of their freight. So we sometimes think that discounting is the way to go in order to do that. Yes, sometimes you will provide discounts in lanes, right? But what we have to understand is that discounts ultimately come from your profit margin. If you're drawing discounts into lanes, usually you're taking that from your profits, right? When you think about it, a truck driver has X amount of dollars that he has to make in that lane. You've already looked at the lane and you see that this is what the lane is calling for, X amount of dollars per mile in this lane, right? When you start going underneath that to cut shippers a break, that is going to start causing you problems in the long run. It's not something to me that is sustainable long term, right? Because your trucking network, you have a trucking network you're building, and you are only as good as your trucking network, right? And after a while, if you always come to truck drivers with low rates or, you know, those rates that just don't get it done, well, the likelihood of them working with you, continuing to work with you, is not very likely, right? And the other part is, when you look at it, when you start working with shippers, right, and we start giving these discounts, well, as long as you give the discount, guess what happens? You get the lanes. When you stop giving the discounts, you don't get those lanes, right? So some of us have in our minds that we'll make up the money. We'll charge, you know, a lesser amount in this lane and we'll make it up in other lanes. But if you're not careful, what you'll see happen is you'll start having to give discounts in any lane that you're getting with that shipper, because that's what they come to expect from you. When you start giving discounts, then they say, oh, okay, well, this is the freight broker that we get discounts from. And when you don't give those discounts, you'll start seeing loads going to those other carriers or other freight brokers, right? The biggest part about this game is understanding how to price loads. Some of you are giving discounts simply because you don't understand how to price loads. Yes, you want to take a look at load boards. You want to see what the average rates are in those lanes to give you some idea of where you need to start your rate at. But ultimately, your rates are determined by the market, how much freight is going for in that particular lane, and then, of course, negotiation. How good or how bad are you at negotiating? When you start talking with carriers to figure out what lanes are going at, where they are, where they would like to be, then you get even a better look of where you're going to need to be as a freight broker to get the lane moved, right? Now, yes, you'll have your calculations of coming up with what you think the lane is worth, and then in your mind, you're saying, hey, I know I can get it done for this. But it's always good, especially when you are a new freight broker, when you don't have lane history to reference, you always want to confirm those rates with carriers. You want to talk with carriers in those lanes to get a feel for what the lane is actually moving at, right? Because we know that we can take a look at a load board and there can be a number there, the average number, but it's just the average number. So many loads are higher than that, so many loads are lower than that. And really, those numbers don't mean a whole lot, especially when trucking capacity is low in those lanes. When trucking capacity is low, then the entire dynamic changes. You might see 1,500 on the load board as an average price, but that lane could be going for 2,400, 2,300, depending on trucking capacity, depending on the lane dynamics and what is happening in those lanes. So what I would suggest to do is not become discount happy. Stop looking at every lane and trying to figure out how you can cut the costs in the lane, right? Go ahead and start pricing those lanes competitively. That way, when you start sending those rates back to your shippers, they're not looking at, 5 rates at $1,700 and then here yours is at $1,200, $500 difference, because yes, you're going to get that lane. But how often are you going to be able to make profits at those numbers? You probably won't even be able to get that lane moved with a truck driver for that number. So it's important, very, very important, to price lanes competitively. Give shippers a price that you can get the load moved at and make profit. And also understand that if that truck driver is not winning, if the truck driver is not winning, then you are not going to win either, my friend. So get yourself together, get your calculations together, get your pen together, and go in and measure the lane. Understand that particular lane, how the freight is moving in that lane, the capacity, truck capacity, how much freight is in the lane, and price the lane competitively. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you want to learn more about the freight broker business, check out the description for the link. It's my 5-video series, and it's titled How the Load Movement Process Works. Shows you exactly how loads move from point A to point B. I'm talking to shippers, talking to carriers, and you'll get an understanding of how that works so that you are not blindsided when you come into the business. Also, if you're interested in learning how we go out and find our customers, find the shippers that we do business with, I'll leave you a free video right here as well. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you all the way at the top of the mountain, because the bottom is much too crowded.